clock on the wall read 11 p.m. The hallways of Steinway Concert Hall were shrouded in darkness, lit only by the faint glow of green exit signs. The sound of wheels rolling across marble floors echoed rhythmically, like a melancholy song. The smell of cleaning chemicals mixed with the scent of aged piano wood created a strange combination, both familiar and foreign. Marcus Williams pushed his cleaning cart down the long corridor. His navy blue uniform had faded after 5 years of use. His work shoes squeaked softly against the floor. On the cart sat bottles of cleanser, rags, black garbage bags, and a small radio quietly playing classical music. Nobody saw Marcus Williams. Nobody noticed this 45-year-old man with his weathered hands and tired face. To the world, he was just part of the shadows, an invisible component of this building. But nobody knew that 30 years ago. This man had stood on the stage of Carnegie Hall before thousands. Nobody knew that 7-year-old Marcus Williams had once made the entire world hold its breath as his small fingers created sounds people called miraculous. Nobody knew that the New York Times had once called him the Piano Prodigy from Harlem. Nobody knew that the hands now gripping a mop handle had once been insured for $1 million. Marcus stopped before the large doors leading to the main concert hall. Through the crack of the partially open door, he could see the Steinway Model D grand piano standing center stage, a single light shining down on it like a lonely satellite in the vast universe. He stood there for a minute, maybe 2, his hand gripping the cart handle. His heart pounded. Memories rushed back like a tide. Tonight would be different. Tonight, after 15 years of running, Marcus Williams would do something he thought he could never do again. Tonight, the world would remember the name they had forgotten. Marcus Williams woke up at 9 p.m. His small room in the Bronx still held the late afternoon sun filtering through the window curtains. He lay on the single bed for a few seconds, looking up at the cracked ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of this old building, the subway rumbling underground, car horns from the street, a TV from the next apartment. He sat up, feet touching the cold wooden floor. This small apartment had only 2 bedrooms, his and Zoe's, his daughter. The living room doubled as a kitchen, a cramped space with an old couch, a small TV, and a wooden dining table he'd bought from a thrift store 5 years ago. Marcus went into the bathroom, splashed his face with cold water. He looked in the mirror. The face looking back was his but older, more tired. His hair was graying at the temples. The lines around his eyes deepened each year. But his eyes still held the spark his late wife had loved. He dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, walked into the living room. Zoe sat at the dining table doing homework. The 14-year-old was taller than her peers, with her mother's curly hair and Marcus's wide eyes. "Hi, Dad," Zoe said without looking up from her math workbook. "Hey, sweetie," Marcus said, heading into the small kitchen. "I'll make dinner for you." "What do you want?" "Anything's fine." "Dad, I'm not that hungry." Marcus opened the refrigerator. Inside were some eggs, a bit of chicken, vegetables, and half a loaf of bread. He began cooking. The sound of the pan sizzling on the stove, the smell of sautéed onions, the familiar motions of an ordinary dinner. While cooking, Marcus glanced at Zoe. She was biting her pencil, frowning at the math problem. Marcus knew that expression. That was his expression when he was trying to solve a difficult problem. Zoe resembled him in so many ways. Not just appearance. "Homework tough?" Marcus asked. "A little," Zoe admitted. "But I'll figure it out." Marcus smiled. That was the spirit. That's what he tried to teach her every day. Never give up. Always try. Even when life is hard. Even when nobody believes in you. 15 minutes later, they sat together eating dinner. Chicken stir-fry with vegetables and white rice. Simple but sufficient. Marcus considered this one of the best moments of his day. Time with his daughter. Time when he wasn't a janitor. Didn't have to worry about money, didn't have to think about the past. Just father and daughter. Sharing a meal. "How was school today?" Marcus asked. Zoe shrugged. It was okay. Marcus knew what okay meant. It meant something wasn't right. But Zoe didn't want him to worry. She was always like that, always trying to protect him, even though he was the adult, the father. "You sure?" he asked gently. Zoe looked up, her eyes meeting his. For a second, he saw pain there, but then she smiled. "Yes, Dad, I'm fine." Marcus didn't push. He knew when to ask and when to let it be. That was one of the things he'd learned after his wife passed 3 years ago. Sometimes, being there and listening was more important than having all the answers. After dinner, Marcus washed dishes while Zoe continued her homework. He checked the clock. 9:45 p.m. He had to leave for work in 15 minutes. "I'm heading to work, sweetie," he said, drying his hands. "Remember to lock the door and don't open it for anyone." "Okay, Dad," Zoe said. "Be careful." Marcus put on his navy blue uniform. The shirt washed hundreds of times until the original deep blue had become faded blue. He tucked his small earbuds into his pocket. He always listened to classical music while working and grabbed his backpack before leaving. He turned back, walked to Zoe and kissed the top of her head. "Love you," he whispered. "Love you too," Zoe said, hugging him tight. Marcus stepped out of the apartment, down the dark stairwell smelling of mildew, onto the crowded Bronx evening streets. He walked 3 blocks to the subway station, boarded the train to Manhattan. On the train, he stood holding the handrail, looking out the dark window as the train passed through tunnels. The other people on the train were heading home after a day's work. He was going to work. The night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., every night, 5 days a week, sometimes 6. Marcus pulled out his earbuds and started the music. Chopin's Nocturne Op. The two flowed into his ears. He closed his eyes. His fingers twitched slightly, as if playing the notes on an invisible piano. Muscle memory. After all these years, his body still remembered. Sometimes Marcus wondered what would have happened if things had gone differently, if the accident hadn't happened, if his mother were still alive, if his fingers were still perfect. Where would he be now? Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center concert halls in Paris, London, Tokyo. But then he shook his head. There was no use thinking about what ifs. Life was what it was. He was who he was now, Marcus Williams, janitor at Steinway Concert Hall, single father, a 45-year-old man with a past nobody knew. The subway stopped at 57th Street. Marcus got off, climbed the stairs to the Manhattan Street. Steinway Concert Hall was just 2 blocks away. The beautiful building with Art Deco architecture, built in the 1920s. A large sign at the front of the building. Steinway Concert Hall, where music lives. Marcus entered the employee entrance at the back of the building. He tapped his employee card on the scanner. The door opened. The hallway led down to the basement where the staff locker room was. In the locker room, he met a few other colleagues. Carlos, another janitor, was putting on his uniform. Lisa, who worked the day shift, was taking off her uniform to go home. "Hey, Marcus," Carlos said. "You ready for a long night, always ready?" Marcus said with a tired smile. "There was a big show tonight." Lisa said, "David Sterling performed the Rachmaninoff Concerto." "Incredible. You should have been here to listen." Marcus nodded. David Sterling. He knew that name. Van Cliburn competition winner. Famous pianist. He'd seen Sterling's poster on the hallway walls. A young, confident, successful face. The concert hall needs a lot of cleaning. Lisa continued. The audience was huge, sold out. "I'll handle it," Marcus said. Lisa patted his shoulder. "See you tomorrow." Marcus. Carlos and Marcus started their shift. They divided the work. Carlos would clean the restrooms, hallways, and lobby. Marcus would clean the main concert hall, practice rooms, and offices. Marcus preferred his assignment, especially the concert hall. That's where he could be alone with the music, with the echoes of performances, with the grand piano standing silent on stage. At 10:30 p.m., Marcus pushed his cleaning cart into the concert hall. This large hall could hold 2,000 people. Now it was completely empty. The rows of red seats stretched out like frozen waves in time. The wide stage with the Steinway Model D piano at its center. Marcus began working. He went through each row, picking up trash, discarded programs, water bottles, candy. He wiped up spilled drinks. He vacuumed the aisles. Monotonous, repetitive work. But he didn't complain. This was the job. This was how he fed Zoe while working. The small earbuds in his pocket continued playing music. Now it was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Marcus knew every note. He had played this piece when he was 8. One of the first Beethoven works he learned. He worked more slowly as he approached the stage. The stage lights were all off, only a few emergency lights in the wings. But that light was enough for Marcus to see the piano. He stopped, set down the mop, stepped onto the stage. The concert hall was empty. 11 p.m. Not a soul. Carlos was on another floor. The security guard was in the lobby. Marcus walked to the piano, placed his hand on the closed lid. The wood was smooth, cold beneath his palm. He could feel a very slight vibration, as if the instrument still remembered the sounds of tonight's performance. He opened the lid. The white and black keys stared at him like eyes. 88 keys, countless possibilities, countless stories waiting to be told. Marcus sat on the bench. His heart raced. His hands trembled. 15 years. 15 years since he'd last sat before a piano like this. 15 years since he'd told himself he would never touch a piano again. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, the loneliness of the concert hall, the silence, the echoes of the music Sterling had just created, all of it called to him. Marcus placed his fingers on the keys. Right hand. The first 3 fingers, thumb, index. Middle rested naturally. The last 2, ring and pinky, were stiff, inflexible. The consequence of the accident. These fingers would never work perfectly again. But the left hand was perfect. Marcus pressed 1 key, middle C. The simple, pure sound filled the space. It rang through the empty concert hall, reflecting off the walls, ceiling, rows of seats. One note, just one note. But it was enough to open the door Marcus had tried to lock tight for 15 years. Tears fell. Marcus couldn't stop them. Tears dripped onto the keys, creating small, wet marks on the ivory surface. He placed his hands down and began to play. Harlem, New York, fall 1987. 5-year-old Marcus Williams walked with his mother down Lenox Avenue. His mother, Diane Williams, was a postal worker who'd just finished her shift. She wore her blue uniform, tired but still holding her son's hand firmly. Mama, I want to see. Marcus pulled his mother's hand toward the music store on the street. In the display window sat an upright piano, light shining on the white and black keys. Marcus, we don't have time, Diane said. I need to get home and cook dinner. Just 1 minute. Please, Diane looked down at her son's wide eyes. She couldn't refuse. Okay, but just 1 minute. They stepped into the store, the smell of wood and fresh paint, pianos, guitars, violins lined the shelves and walls. The store owner, an elderly white man with a white beard, looked up from the cash register. Can I help you? He asked. No, thank you, Diane said. We're just looking. Marcus had already run to the piano in the corner of the store. A Yamaha upright. He stood before it, eyes shining. Mama, can I touch it? Marcus, don't. But the boy had already placed his hands on the keys, small fingers, untrained. He pressed one key, the sound rang out, and then something strange happened. Marcus began to play, not just randomly pressing keys like children usually do. He played a melody, a simple but clear melody with structure. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Diane stood there, mouth agape. She'd never taught Marcus to play piano. They didn't have one at home. Where had he learned? The store owner approached. He observed the 5-year-old with curiosity. The boy knows how to play. Number, Diane said, voice shaking. My son has never taken piano lessons. Really, the owner studied Marcus more closely. Son, where did you learn that song? Marcus looked up, eyes innocent. From TV. I heard it and I remembered. The store owner and Diane looked at each other. There was something special here. He might have perfect pitch, he said. Or maybe more than that. Mrs. Williams, do you know any piano teachers? Diane shook her head. She worked 2 jobs to support Marcus and her husband Robert, who drove a taxi at night. They didn't have money for piano lessons. The store owner thought for a moment. I know someone. Professor Steinberg at Juilliard. He sometimes takes talented students, free of charge. I can make an introduction. And that's how it all began. 2 months later, Marcus Williams, age 5, sat in Professor David Steinberg's studio at the Juilliard School. Professor Steinberg. 70 had taught piano for 50 years. He had trained some of the world's top artists. Play something for me. Marcus, Professor Steinberg said. Marcus, sitting on the bench slightly higher than him, placed his hands on the keys. He played Twinkle Twinkle once more. Simple, but perfect. Good, Professor Steinberg said. Now, I'll play something, and you listen. Then you try to play it back. The professor played a scale, C major scale. Up and down, 8 notes. Marcus listened. Then he played it back. Perfect. Every note in place. Professor Steinberg's eyes widened. He played something more complex, a passage from a Mozart sonata. Marcus listened. And then his small fingers began to play. Not perfect, he was still a 5-year-old, but he remembered. He remembered the melody, the rhythm, even the emotion. Professor Steinberg sat in his chair, stunned. In 50 years of teaching, he had never seen anything like this. "Mrs. Williams," he said, voice trembling, "your son is a prodigy, a true talent. I will take him as my student from that day." Marcus's life changed completely every day after school. Diane brought Marcus to Juilliard. He studied with Professor Steinberg 3 hours each day. On weekends, 4 to 5 hours. The professor didn't charge. He said training Marcus was his honor. Marcus progressed at an astonishing rate. After 6 months, he could play Beethoven's Fürelise after 1 year, Mozart sonatas after 2 years, Chopin nocturnes when Marcus was 7. Professor Steinberg organized a small recital for his students. Marcus would perform Chopin's Waltz in a minor. The recital was held in a small room at Juilliard. About 50 people attended. Most were families of students, a few other professors, but also one special person, a music critic from the New York Times. Marcus walked onto the small stage. He wore a black suit his mother had bought from a thrift store, polished shoes, hair neatly combed. He sat at the bench. The room fell silent. Everyone waited. Marcus placed his hands on the keys and began to play. Music poured from him like a river. Chopin's waltz, gentle, melancholy, beautiful. The small fingers moved across the keys with confidence and grace beyond his years. He wasn't just playing notes. He felt them, breathed them, lived them. When the piece ended, the room was silent for a few seconds. Then, applause, not polite applause, real, powerful, moved applause. The man from the New York Times, James Crawford, sat with tears in his eyes. He had heard thousands of performances in his career. But something about this 7-year-old, the purity, the honesty in his playing touched his heart. The next week, an article appeared in the New York Times. The Piano Prodigy from Harlem, Marcus Williams. 7 stuns audience with emotional Chopin performance. The article went viral. Local TV came to interview, then national, then international, within 6 months. Marcus Williams became a phenomenon, the boy from Harlem. Poor family, unbelievable talent. When Marcus was 8, he received an invitation to perform at Carnegie Hall as part of a fundraising event. He would play Mozart Piano Concerto No. 21 with a full orchestra on the night of the performance. Carnegie Hall was packed. 800 people. Media everywhere. Cameras, flashlights, microphones. Marcus walked onto the stage. This time he wasn't nervous. He had done this enough times to feel comfortable. For him, this wasn't a performance. This was where he belonged. The orchestra began. And then Marcus, his small fingers touching the keys, creating magic. In the audience, Diane and Robert Williams sat holding each other, crying. Their son, their little boy, on the stage of Carnegie Hall. After the performance, a standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Marcus bowed 7 times. Flowers were thrown onto the stage. People shouted his name. Marcus, Marcus, Marcus. Professor Steinberg hugged him backstage. You did it, son. You did it. And Marcus, 8 years old, smiled. He didn't fully understand the magnitude of what was happening. He just knew he loved playing piano. And people loved hearing him play. But what Marcus didn't know, what nobody could predict, was that in just 2 years, it would all end. One night, one accident, and it was over. But that's a story for later. Now, let's return to Marcus at 45, sitting at the piano in Steinway Concert Hall at midnight. trying to find again something he thought was lost forever. Marcus sat at the bench in the empty concert hall, fingers still resting on the keys after playing middle C. His heart pounded in his chest. Sweat beaded on his forehead. But he didn't move. The sound of that single note still echoed in his head. It opened a door he had locked long ago. Memories flooded back like a deluge. His mother smiling when she heard him play. Professor Steinberg standing beside him, correcting his posture. The stage lights of Carnegie Hall. The thunderous applause. And then the screech of brakes. Metal colliding. Glass shattering. Screaming. Darkness. Marcus shook his head hard, dispelling the images. No, not now. He didn't want to think about that. He looked down at his hands, resting on the keys. Left hand, 5 perfect fingers, long and slender, just like when he was a child. Right hand, the first 3 fingers were okay, but the ring and pinky fingers were slightly curved, not fully straight. He tried to straighten them, but they only went so far before stopping. Stiff. The surgery had tried its best. The doctors had said so. We saved the fingers. You're lucky. Many people in your situation had to have them amputated, but saved didn't mean fully restored. The ligaments were damaged. The bones didn't heal perfectly. Range of motion was limited. For most people, that wouldn't be a problem. They could still write, eat, do most things. But for a concert pianist, for someone who needed to play Rachmaninoff, Liszt, Prokofiev, impossible. Marcus had given up, simple as that. If he couldn't play at the level he once did, he wouldn't play at all. That was his decision at 12. And he had kept it for 33 years. But tonight, Marcus placed his left hand down and began playing a simple scale. C major. The fingers moved up and down the keys. Easily, naturally, muscle memory was still there. Then he added his right hand. The first 3 fingers played harmony. The last 2 didn't move, he couldn't make them fast enough. But the 3 fingers could still create music. The sound wasn't perfect, but it was music. And after 15 years of silence, it sounded like a miracle. Marcus played other scales, G major, D major, a minor. The fingers were stiff, sluggish at first. But the more he played, the more they remembered. They began moving faster, smoother. He moved to arpeggios, then simple melodies. For Elise, the first piece that came to mind, he began playing it. The familiar opening melody poured out. E, D, E, D, E, B, D, C, A. The fingers found their way as if no time had passed. Left hand played bass notes. Supporting the melody, right hand, though limited, could still play the main part. The music filled the concert hall. It reflected off the walls, ceiling, empty rows of seats. It wrapped around Marcus like a warm embrace, and he cried. Tears ran down his cheeks. But he didn't stop playing. He played on, through the pain, through the sorrow, through 15 years of silence and regret. When he finished for release, he sat in silence, breathing heavily. His hands trembled, but in his chest. His heart felt something it hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Marcus checked the clock on the wall. 11:45 p.m. He had to keep cleaning. Carlos might walk by any moment. He couldn't be caught here. He wiped his tears, stood from the bench. He looked back at the piano one last time. Thank you, he whispered to it, as if the instrument could hear. He closed the lid carefully, walked down from the stage, and returned to his cleaning work. But something had changed. A seed had been planted, and Marcus knew, deep down, that he would return to that piano. Over the following nights, Marcus developed a routine. He would complete the main cleaning work as quickly as possible, around 1 a.m., when Carlos was busy cleaning other floors and the security guard was doing rounds at the front of the building. Marcus would return to the concert hall. He would go on stage, open the piano lid, and play. Each night, he discovered more of what he could do. His left hand grew stronger, faster. His right hand learned to work within its limitations, 3 fingers playing what they could. The other 2 simply held still or moved minimally. Marcus began researching online during the hours he was awake during the day. He Googled piano with injured hand, piano for disabled pianists, one-handed piano music. And he discovered a whole world he didn't know existed. In World War I and II, many pianists lost their right hand due to injuries, but they didn't give up music. They learned to play with their left hand, and composers wrote special works for them. Paul Wittgenstein, an Austrian pianist, lost his right hand in WWI after returning from war. He commissioned composers to write piano concertos for the left hand: Ravel, Prokofiev, Britten. Korngold all wrote beautiful works for the left hand alone. Marcus sat in his small Bronx apartment, reading about these artists, and felt a connection. They too had lost something. They too had to adapt. But they didn't give up. He searched for sheet music for these works. Many were free on classical music websites. He downloaded and printed them at the public library. On the 4th night of secret practice sessions, Marcus brought sheet music of Scriabin's Prelude and Nocturne for the left hand, or 9, to the concert hall. At 2 a.m., alone with the piano, he opened the music and began learning. At first, it was impossibly difficult. The left hand had to play both melody and accompaniment, bass notes and treble, all at once. The fingers had to jump across the keyboard, moving faster than he thought possible, but Marcus didn't give up. He broke the piece into small sections, measures 1 through 4, play slowly, then again, until the fingers remembered, then measures 5 through 8, each night. He made progress. The fingers grew stronger. Brain-to-finger connections were restored. Music began to flow. By week 2, he could play the entire Scriabin Prelude. Though slowly but accurately, week 3, he started learning a much larger work, Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand. This wasn't a simple piece. This was one of the most difficult left-hand works ever written. Ravel composed it for Paul Wittgenstein, and it demanded incredible strength, speed, and endurance from one hand alone. The score was 30 pages thick. Marcus printed it out and studied it like a student cramming for a final exam. He listened to recordings of it on YouTube. Vladimir Ashkenazy, Leon Fleischer, who also lost use of his right hand due to focal dystonia, Philippe Entremont. He listened to each version, learning interpretation, dynamics, phrasing, and every night. In the silence of the concert hall, he practiced. The piece began with a powerful, dramatic motion in the original orchestration, a contrabassoon solo, but in the solo piano version, the left hand played low notes, thick as thunder. Marcus learned to make his left hand sound like an entire orchestra. The passages moved through many different moods, powerful, delicate, jazzy, classical. The left hand had to do it all. No right hand to help. No second hand to share the workload. By week 4, Marcus was barely sleeping. He worked the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., got home, prepared breakfast for Zoe at 7 a.m. after Zoe left for school at 7:30 a.m. instead of sleeping. He sat with headphones and the score, mentally rehearsing, visualizing the fingers moving. He slept from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., 5 hours. Enough to survive. Then, time with Zoe from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., then back to work. His body ached. His left hand developed new calluses. His wrist hurt. His shoulder hurt. But he didn't stop. Something was awakening in him. A part of himself he thought had died. The part that was an artist. The part that created, not cleaned. Marcus remembered what Professor Steinberg had told him when he was young Marcus. Music isn't about fingers, it's about heart. Fingers are just the tools. Heart is the source. At the time, he didn't understand. Now, playing with a damaged hand, he understood. He couldn't play Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto anymore. He couldn't play Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody. He couldn't play the pieces he had once mastered as a child prodigy. But he could play Ravel's left-hand concerto. He could play Scriabin. He could create beautiful music with what he had. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was more than enough. One night, during the 5th week of secret practice, Marcus was playing a particularly challenging passage from the Ravel Concerto, a section where the left hand had to play rapid chromatic runs while maintaining a melody line above when he heard a sound. Footsteps. Marcus stopped playing immediately. His heart pounded. He looked around the dark concert hall. Was someone there? Hello, a voice called from backstage. Marcus stood from the bench. Panicked. It was Reggie, the security guard. Reggie, I'm sorry, Marcus began to explain. But Reggie raised a hand. You're fine, Marcus. I just heard the music and got curious. That was you playing? Marcus nodded, not knowing what to say. Reggie stepped closer, his flashlight beam illuminating the stage. I didn't know you played piano. I used to. A long time ago. Marcus said softly. Reggie looked at him with a new expression. Man, that was amazing what I just heard. Seriously, you're really good. Marcus didn't know how to respond. Thank you. You mind if I listen? I don't want to interrupt. It's just, this job can be boring at night. Hearing some music would be nice. Marcus hesitated. But there was something in Reggie's sincerity that made him feel safe. Sure, Marcus said. I'll play a bit more. Reggie sat in the back row, turned off his flashlight. The concert hall returned to darkness except for the dim emergency lights. Marcus returned to the piano, sat down, and began playing from the beginning. Scriabin Prelude. One of the works he had mastered. He played with a confidence he hadn't felt before. Having an audience, even just one person, changed everything. He wasn't just playing for himself. He was sharing something. When he finished, Reggie applauded. Damn. Marcus, that was beautiful. Marcus turned, smiling for the first time in weeks. Thanks. Reggie, how'd you learn to play like that? Classical training and when I was young, Marcus said, not going into detail. Reggie nodded. You should perform. Man, why are you cleaning when you could be on that stage? The question hurt more than Reggie knew. Marcus looked down at his hands. Life's complicated. It sure is. Reggie agreed. But hey, you keep playing whenever you want. I won't tell anyone, and really. It's better hearing you play piano than hearing silence. Thanks. Reggie, seriously, no problem. Man. Reggie stood to leave, then paused. Hey, Marcus. Yeah. Whatever happened that made you stop, I hope you find your way back. The world needs music like you create. Reggie left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Marcus sat alone in the darkness, Reggie's words echoing in his head. The world needs music like you create. Maybe Reggie was right. But the question was, did Marcus have the courage to let the world hear? One Saturday morning, Marcus woke at 7 a.m. after an especially exhausting night. He'd stayed at the concert hall until 4 a.m., practicing the Ravel concerto. His body ached, but he felt a strange satisfaction. He was making progress. He walked into the living room and found Zoe already awake, sitting at the dining table with his laptop. She was watching something on the screen, brow furrowed in concentration. Up early? Marcus asked, starting to make coffee. Dad, Zoe said without looking up. Do you know about the Jefferson High talent show Marcus poured water into the coffee maker? No. What's that every year? The school holds a big talent show. Students perform singing, dancing, instruments, everything. It's happening in 6 weeks. Sounds good, Marcus said. Though he was wondering why Zoe cared. She had never mentioned wanting to participate in anything like that before. Zoe turned to look at him, eyes wide and serious. I want to enter. Marcus stopped mid-pour. Enter doing what piano? Time seemed to stop. Marcus looked at his daughter, not sure he'd heard correctly. Piano, Zoe nodded. I know it sounds crazy. I've never studied piano. But Dad, there's a girl named Madison in my class. She's really mean to me, always bullying me because we're poor, and she's going to play piano in the talent show. She always brags about her expensive lessons and the Steinway grand piano at her house. Marcus sat down at the table. Coffee forgotten? Zoe? I know it sounds impossible, Zoe continued, voice rising. But I've always wanted to learn piano. Always. Ever since I was little. Hearing you tell stories about music, I know we don't have money for lessons or a piano. But if there was some way, any way, I could learn just one simple song to perform. Tears began forming in her eyes. Marcus felt his heart breaking. I just want to show them, Zoe whispered. Show Madison and everyone who says I'll never amount to anything that I can do something special. Something good. Marcus felt like someone had just punched him in the stomach. He looked at his daughter, eyes full of hope and pain, and saw himself 30 years ago. The boy from Harlem who wanted to prove himself. Do you have talent? Marcus asked softly. Zoe shrugged. I don't know. I've never tried. But I think I could. I think if someone taught me, I could learn. Marcus sat in silence, a million thoughts racing through his head. He could teach her? Of course he could. He had once been one of the youngest pianists in the world. He knew how to teach. Professor Steinberg had taught him, and he'd learned those methods. But if he taught Zoe, he'd have to reveal that he played piano. And if he revealed that, she'd ask questions. Where did he learn? Why was he so good? Why had he never mentioned it before? He'd have to tell her the truth, all of it, about being a child prodigy, about the accident, about the death of the grandmother Zoe never met, about why he was a janitor instead of a concert pianist. And Marcus had hidden those things for so long. The shame ran too deep. But looking into his daughter's eyes, seeing the hope and desperation there, how could he refuse? Do you think Dad could teach you? Zoe asked. Voice small. Marcus took a deep breath. This was one of those defining moments, a decision that would change everything. Yes, he finally said. I can teach you. Zoe's face lit up like the sun. Really, but Dad, how do you know piano? Marcus chose his words carefully. I learned when I was young. For a long time. I was pretty good. I can teach you the basics. Enough for you to play a simple song for the talent show. Oh my God. Dad, Zoe jumped up and hugged him tight. Thank you. Thank you so much. Marcus hugged her back, feeling the warmth of her, the smell of her shampoo. His girl, his little girl facing the cruelties of the world, but still with hope in her eyes. But sweetie, he said, pulling back to look at her face, we have one problem. We don't have a piano at home. Zoe's smile faded slightly. Oh, right. And we can't rent one. Too expensive. So what do we do? Marcus had been thinking about this in the 30 seconds since he'd agreed to teach her. There was a solution, but it was risky. Very risky. I work at a concert hall, he said slowly. There are pianos there. Beautiful pianos. After hours. When the building's empty, I could... He paused. This was it. The moment he committed. I could bring you there, teach you there. Zoe's eyes widened. Really, but isn't that... Against the rules, probably, Marcus admitted. But Reggie, the security guard, is a good person. And as long as we're careful. Quiet. Don't break anything. It'll be okay, I think. Are you sure? Marcus wasn't sure at all. But he looked at his daughter. Saw the hope there. And he knew what he'd do. Yes, he said, I'm sure. We'll do this. Zoe hugged him again. Tighter this time. I love you. I love you too. Baby, I love you too. That Friday night, Marcus brought Zoe to Steinway Concert Hall for the first time. They arrived at 11:30 p.m., half an hour after Marcus's shift started. Zoe had napped in the afternoon so she could stay up late. She wore jeans, a hoodie, carrying a small notebook she said she'd use to write down notes. They entered through the employee entrance. Marcus introduced Zoe to Reggie, who was doing his rounds. Hey, Marcus, Reggie said, then looked at Zoe. This must be your daughter you always talk about. Yes, this is Zoe, Marcus said. Zoe, this is Reggie. Nice to meet you, Reggie said, shaking Zoe's hand. Your dad's a good man. Zoe smiled. I know. Marcus looked at Reggie, a silent question in his eyes. Reggie understood. Listen, Reggie said. I'll be in the lobby and upper floors tonight. I won't check the concert hall until around 4 a.m. You know what I mean? Thanks. Reggie, Marcus said. Grateful, no problem, man. Everyone deserves to learn. Marcus and Zoe walked down the hallway toward the concert hall. With each step, Marcus's heart beat faster. He was really doing this, really teaching his daughter piano. How long the road had been? From Carnegie Hall at 8 to cleaning concert halls at 45 to teaching his daughter at midnight. They stepped into the concert hall. Marcus turned on a few lights, not enough to be bright, but enough to see. Zoe looked around the hall in awe. Her eyes were wide. Taking it all in the red seats, the wide stage, the high ceiling with decorative plasterwork. Dad, she whispered. It's beautiful. It is. Marcus agreed. They walked onto the stage. Zoe moved slowly, reverently, as if the stage were sacred ground. When she saw the grand piano, she stopped. Breathless. That's the biggest piano I've ever seen. Marcus smiled. That's a Steinway Model D, one of the best concert grands made. Zoe approached the piano carefully, as if afraid it would disappear if she moved too fast. She reached out and touched the lid, running her fingers along the smooth wood. I can really learn on this. Yes, I'll teach you on this instrument. Zoe turned to look at him, eyes full of tears. You're the best dad in the world. Marcus swallowed the lump in his throat. Okay, sweetie, sit down. Zoe sat on the bench. Marcus sat beside her. First thing, Marcus said, slipping into teaching mode is posture. You sit up straight but relaxed. Feet flat on the floor. Hands like this, he demonstrated, curving his fingers as if holding a ball. Fingers curved, like rolling hills. Not flat. Zoe imitated him, placing her hands over the keys. Good, Marcus said. Now, these are the keys, white keys and black keys. White keys are notes A through G. Repeating oit, black keys are sharps and flats. The piano has 88 keys total. This is middle C, he pressed it. Starting point. Everything relates to middle C. Zoe listened intently, absorbing every word. Press middle C. Marcus said. Zoe pressed it. The note rang out. Clear and true, she smiled. I did it. Yes, you did. Marcus smiled. Now the rest. D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. That's one octave. Try it. Zoe played the notes one by one. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Perfect. Marcus said. Okay. Now with both hands. Right hand plays C, D, E, F, G. Left hand plays low C, B, A, G, F. At the same time, Zoe tried. It was clumsy, uncoordinated, fingers bumped into each other, but she laughed. It's harder than it looks. It is. Marcus said. But practice makes better? Not perfect better. And better is all we need. They spent the next 2 hours working on basics. Hand position, finger numbering, thumb is 1, index is 2, middle is 3, ring is 4, pinky is 5. Simple scales. Finding notes. Marcus was patient, encouraging. Everything his teachers were to him. No, more than that. Everything his teachers should have been. Professor Steinberg was brilliant but harsh. Again. Not good enough, always pushing. Marcus was different. Good try. Try it slower. There you go. Excellent. And Zoe responded. She learned quickly, natural rhythm, good ear. Marcus realized with a start. She had inherited his musical talent, nature and nurture. Both at 2 a.m.? They took a break. Zoe stretched her fingers, which were cramping slightly. Dad, yes, can I ask something? Of course. Where did you learn, I mean? You're really good. How does a janitor? She stopped, realizing it might sound rude. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Marcus placed a hand on Zoe's shoulder. It's okay. Baby, that's a fair question. He took a deep breath. This was it. The moment he revealed part of his past. When I was young, around your age, I learned piano. I had a good teacher and I practiced a lot. Many hours every day. I was pretty talented. What happened? Why did you stop? Marcus looked down at his hands. Damaged fingers. There was an accident. When I was 10, my family was in a car crash. My mom, your grandmother, who you never met, died. I injured my hands. These fingers, he held up his right hand, showed the 2 stiff fingers. They don't work right anymore. I couldn't play like I used to. So I stopped. Zoe looked at his hand, then at his face. In her eyes, understanding, compassion, sadness. I'm so sorry, Dad. It was a long time ago, Marcus said, though the pain in his chest said otherwise. But you can still play. I heard you play beautiful music tonight while teaching me. A little, Marcus admitted. Not like before, but enough. Zoe hugged him. You're stronger than you think. Marcus hugged her back, blinking back tears out of the mouths of babes. Okay, he said, pulling back. Enough sad talk. Let's work on an actual song. Okay, something simple. Twinkle, twinkle. Zoe's face lit up, Really, by the end of tonight, you'll play a complete song, and Zoe did. By 3:30 a.m., she could play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with both hands, slowly but accurately. When they finished, Marcus stood and applauded. Bravo, first performance. Zoe stood and bowed, giggling. Thank you. They cleaned up, closed the piano, turned off the lights. On the way out, Marcus felt a warmth in his chest. This was why he'd fallen in love with music originally. Not fame or applause. Shared joy. Creating something beautiful with someone you love. Walking home through the early morning Manhattan streets. Zoe held Marcus's hand. Dad, yes. Can we do this every night? Marcus looked down at his daughter, her face still glowing from the lesson. How could he say no? Yes, baby. Every night. And so they did. Week 5 of the secret lessons. Marcus and Zoe had developed a perfect routine every night, Monday through Friday. They arrived at the concert hall at 11:30 p.m. Zoe had learned scales, basic chords, and was now working on Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Chub 9? No. 2. A beautiful and achievable piece for a talented beginner with intensive training. She was progressing remarkably. Marcus wasn't surprised. She had his genes, after all. But more than that, she had something he'd lost when he was young Joy. Zoe played piano because she loved it, not because of pressure or expectations. And that made all the difference. While teaching Zoe, Marcus also continued his own practice. After Zoe went home, usually around 2:30 a.m., when she was too tired to continue, Marcus would stay behind and work on Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand. He had mastered most of it by now. His fingers, especially the left hand, were stronger than ever. The calluses on his fingertips had formed. The wrist pain had lessened as the muscles adapted. He could play the entire concerto from memory, though not perfectly, not at performance level yet, but close. Wednesday night, week 5. Everything changed. Maestro James Morrison, music director of Steinway Concert Hall, was working late in his office. He was 58 years old, African-American with silver hair and a commanding presence. He'd been a conductor for 35 years and music director at Steinway for the past decade. That night, he was staying late to review scores for the upcoming spring season. His office was on the upper floor, overlooking the concert hall, at 2:45 a.m. He stood to stretch, walked to the window, and he heard it. Piano music coming from the concert hall below. He frowned. The concert hall should be empty at this hour. Janitors should be cleaning, not playing piano. But this music, this wasn't a janitor fooling around. This was serious playing. Technical. Powerful. Maestro Morrison left his office, walked down the stairs to the concert hall level. He moved quietly, not wanting to disturb whoever was playing. He stopped outside the concert hall doors. The music was clearer now. Ravel, Piano Concerto for the left hand. One of the most difficult pieces in the repertoire, and whoever was playing it was doing it justice. Morrison pushed the door open slightly, peered inside. On stage, under dim emergency lighting, a figure sat at the piano, a man, wearing a janitor uniform, playing with an intensity Morrison rarely witnessed. Left hand flying across the keyboard, creating cascades of sound that should be impossible, from one hand alone. Right hand resting mostly still, only occasionally adding single notes in the treble. Morrison realized this pianist had a damaged right hand and had adapted, learning left-hand repertoire. But this technique, This musicality? This wasn't someone who learned casually. This was someone with serious training. Professional level training. Who was this janitor Morrison watched? Transfixed. As Marcus worked through the climax of the concerto, powerful chords, rapid runs, emotional depth. Even in the empty hall with no orchestra, the music filled the space, told a story. When Marcus finished the section he was practicing, he sat still, breathing hard, lost in thought. Morrison stepped inside the hall. That was extraordinary, Nakir. Marcus jumped, turning around so fast he almost knocked over the bench, heart pounding, face draining of color. Maestro Morrison, I'm so sorry. I didn't know anyone was. I shouldn't have been. Morrison raised a hand. Please, don't apologize. Not for that. I haven't heard Ravel played with such passion in years. Marcus stood, uncertain, scared. I know I'm not supposed to be playing the hall's pianos. I'm just a janitor. If you want to fire me? Fire you? Morrison stepped closer, studying Marcus carefully. No, I want to know who you are. I want to know who you... Or you learned to play like that. Marcus didn't know what to say. Heart racing, mind spinning. Your name is Marcus. Right. Marcus Williams. Yes, sir. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Marcus Williams. Piano. Why does that sound familiar? He pulled out his phone, began searching. Marcus watched with growing dread. This was it. The moment he'd been avoiding for 15 years. Discovery. After a moment, Morrison's eyes widened. He looked up from his phone, looked at Marcus, back at the phone. My God, hear that, Marcus Williams. Marcus said nothing, just nodded. The piano prodigy from Harlem. Carnegie Hall at age 8. The New York Times called you the next Mozart. Morrison walked closer. I saw you perform. 1997, San Francisco, you played Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2. You were 9 years old. I was a young conductor then. 30. Your performance moved me to tears. Marcus felt tears forming now. That was a lifetime ago. What happened? Morrison asked gently. Articles say you disappeared after an accident. Nobody knew where you went. Marcus took a deep breath. If he was going to tell anyone, maybe Maestro Morrison would understand. Musician to musician. Car accident. I was 10. My mother died. Right hand was crushed. Doctor saved the fingers, but they were damaged. I couldn't play like before. So I stopped. Completely. For 15 years. Morrison looked down at Marcus's right hand. But you're playing now. Left hand repertoire. I found it a few weeks ago, discovered I could adapt. Not perfect, but perfect. Morrison interrupted. What I just heard was far beyond perfect. That was honest. That was real. That was music from the soul. Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. Morrison continued. Marcus, I don't care what limitations you think you have. What I heard was genius, adapted genius. Perhaps, but genius nonetheless. Maestro. I'm just a janitor trying to number, Morrison said, firmly. You are a pianist. A remarkable one. The janitor job is what you do to survive. But pianist is who you are. Silence filled the hall. Marcus felt something cracking inside him. Walls he'd built for years, crumbling. I have a proposal, Morrison said. Sir, in 3 weeks, we have our spring gala concert. Biggest event of our season. One of our pianists had to cancel visa issues. I need someone to perform a piece. Marcus's eyes widened. You can't be asking me to perform Ravel's piano concerto for the left hand. Morrison finished. With full orchestra. On this stage, in front of 2,000 people. That's impossible. Why? Because I haven't performed in 15 years? Because I'm not a professional anymore? Because you're scared? Morrison said, not unkindly. Marcus looked away. Yes, I'm terrified. Good. Fear means it matters, means you care. Morrison stepped closer. Marcus, I saw you disappear from the music world when you were a child. Tragedy took you from us, but you're back. You're playing again. The world deserves to hear you. I have a daughter. I have a job. I can't risk your daughter needs to see the dreams don't die, that setbacks don't define us. Morrison's voice was passionate now. You think I don't understand I'm an African-American conductor? 1980s. 1990s, you know how many doors were closed in my face, but I didn't stop. I kept conducting. Because music mattered more than fear. Marcus felt tears running down his cheeks. I don't know if you can know I heard you. You're ready. Morrison pulled out a card from his pocket. This is my number. You have 48 hours to decide. But Marcus, he placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. The world is waiting for you. Don't make them wait another 15 years. Morrison walked toward the exit, paused at the door. Oh. And Marcus, your secret is safe with me. I won't tell anyone until you're ready, but please think about it. He left, the door closing softly behind him. Marcus stood alone on stage, shaking, piano silent beside him. Heart pounding. After everything, all the hiding. All the years of running, someone had found him. And instead of judgment, offered a chance. The question was, did he have the courage to take it? Marcus couldn't sleep for the next 2 days. He went through the motions. Work, teach Zoe, eat, pretend everything was normal. But inside, he was breaking apart. Maestro Morrison's offer echoed in his head. Perform Ravel's piano concerto for the left hand. With full orchestra, in front of 2,000 people. Part of him, the part buried deep, wanted it desperately. Wanted to be on stage again. Wanted to feel the lights. Wanted to hear the applause. Wanted to prove he was still a pianist. Still an artist. Still worth something more than a janitor uniform. But the other part, louder, stronger, built from years of fear, screamed, no, too risky, too exposed. What if he failed? What if he froze? What if his damaged hand gave out mid-performance? What if everyone saw him as a broken, pathetic shell of the child prodigy he used to be Thursday evening, 2 days after Morrison's offer? Marcus sat at the dinner table with Zoe. She was eating spaghetti, chattering about school. Marcus barely heard. Dad, Marcus looked up. Sorry, sweetie, what I was saying, the talent show is in 3 weeks. I can play most of the Chopin Nocturne now. I think I'll be ready. That's great. Baby. Zoe studied his face. Dad, are you okay? You look worried. Marcus forced a smile. I'm fine. Just tired. You sure? Yes, sweetie, but he wasn't fine. And Zoe knew. She was too perceptive. Later that night, after Zoe went to bed, Marcus sat in the dark living room, staring at nothing. His wife's photo on the mantel. Sarah. Gone 3 years now. Cancer. Quick, brutal. He wished she were here. She would know what to say. She always did. What should I do? Sarah, he whispered to the photo. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Silence. Just the sound of sirens outside. The city never sleeping. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Marcus Morrison here. Tomorrow is the deadline. Call me, please. Marcus stared at the phone. 24 hours left to decide. He walked to Zoe's room, opened the door quietly. She was sleeping soundly. Teddy bear tucked under her arm, face peaceful. innocent. 13 years ago, when Zoe was born, Marcus thought his life was over. His wife had just been diagnosed. Jobs were scarce. Money was tighter than ever. And here was this tiny human depending on him. But holding his daughter for the first time, he felt something shift, purpose, reason, not for himself anymore, but for her. Everything he did, janitor job, long nights, sacrifices, all for her. But was that enough? Was providing financially enough? Or did she need to see something more? Did she need to see? Dad, chase dreams, face fears, be brave, maestro. Morrison's words echoed, your daughter needs to see that dreams don't die. That setbacks don't define us. Marcus closed Zoe's door quietly, went back to the living room. He sat at the old keyboard, broken, missing keys, but still functional enough. He put on headphones and played silently, fingers moving over keys, Ravel, left hand part. He had it memorized now, every note, every dynamic, every phrase. He could do this, technically. He was ready. Musically, he was ready. The question wasn't ability. The question was courage. At 2 a.m., Marcus made his decision. He picked up his phone, found Morrison's number, and texted, I'll do it. Response came within minutes. Thank God, rehearsal tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll notify the orchestra. Welcome back. Marcus stared at the phone, heart pounding. He had just committed, no going back now. He felt terror, but also buried under the terror a tiny spark of excitement. Friday evening, Marcus arrived at Steinway Concert Hall at 6:45 p.m., not as a janitor, as a performer. He wore decent slacks and a shirt, the best clothes he owned, hair combed, hands washed, nervous like he hadn't been since childhood. Morrison met him at the stage entrance. Marcus, glad you're here. I'm not sure about this. That's normal. Come, meet the orchestra. Morrison led him to the stage. Versat, a full symphony orchestra was setting up. 40 musicians, string section, winds, brass, percussion, professional musicians who performed hundreds of concerts a year. They looked up when Marcus and Morrison entered. Curiosity. Who was this new pianist? Morrison raised his hands for attention. Everyone, this is Marcus Williams. He'll be performing Ravel's left-hand concerto with us for the spring gala. Marcus, these are Boston Symphony Orchestra members. They're here for our season. Murmurs, polite nods. Some skeptical looks. Who was this unknown? Marcus felt small, invisible. Just a janitor pretending to be something he wasn't. Let's start, Morrison said. Moving to the conductor's podium. Marcus, whenever you're ready. Marcus walked to the piano. Beautiful Steinway, the same one he practiced on every night. But now, with 40 musicians watching, it felt different, intimidating. He sat, hands shaking, heart racing. Morrison raised his baton from the top. Nice and easy. This is just the first rehearsal. Orchestra ready, waiting. Marcus placed his left hand over the keys, took a deep breath, and froze, couldn't move. Fingers refused, mind blank, stage fright hitting like a tsunami. 30 seconds passed. Orchestra waiting, Morrison waiting, everyone watching. Marcus Morrison asked gently, You okay? I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. Marcus stood, backing away from the piano. This was a mistake, Marcus. Wait. But Marcus was already leaving the stage, walking quickly toward the exit. Heart pounding, breathing rapid, panic attack coming. He pushed through the doors, into the hallway, kept walking, out the stage door, into the alley behind the building. cool evening air hitting his face. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. What was he thinking? He couldn't do this, couldn't perform. Too broken, too scared. Too Dad? Marcus looked up. Zoe standing at the end of the alley, backpack over her shoulder. She must have come straight from school. Zoe? What are you doing here, Maestro? Morrison called me. Told me you were rehearsing. Told me you might need support. She walked closer. Dad? What happened? Why are you out here? Marcus slid down the wall, sitting on the ground. I froze. In front of all those people? Couldn't play a single note. Zoe sat beside him. Dad, you're scared. I'm terrified. Remember what you told me? When I was scared about the talent show. Marcus looked at his daughter. Zoe continued. You said fear is just excitement that needs adjustment. You said music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. Marcus felt tears coming. That's different. How? Because you're young. You have your whole life ahead. I'm just somebody who gave up on themselves. Zoe's voice was firm. Dad, you're the most talented person I know, and you hide it. Why? Because I'm scared of failing. But Dad, you already failed. You gave up. You stopped playing for 15 years. You work as a janitor when you should be performing. That's failing. Trying and maybe not succeeding is just learning. Marcus stared at his daughter. When had she become so wise? Maestro Morrison told me something. Zoe said, he told me you were a child prodigy, that you performed at Carnegie Hall, that you were going to be one of the greatest pianists of your generation. Marcus closed his eyes. He shouldn't have told you. Why not? I'm proud of you. Dad, not of what you were, but of what you're doing now. You're teaching me, you're playing again, you're trying, but I froze. I couldn't even start. So try again. The orchestra is still inside. The piano is still there. You know the music. You can do this. What if I can't? Then you can't. But at least you tried. Zoe took her dad's hand. Dad, I'm going to be on stage in 3 weeks, playing piano in front of the whole school, including Madison and all the bullies. You think I'm not terrified? I am. But I'm doing it anyway, because you taught me to be brave. Marcus looked into his daughter's eyes, saw himself reflected there, and saw what he needed to be. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I'll try again. That's all anyone can ask. They walked back inside together, down the hallway, back to the stage entrance. Morrison saw them, relief on his face. Marcus, you came back. I'm sorry, I panicked. I understand. Want to try again? Marcus looked at the orchestra. They were patient, not judgmental. Professional musicians who had probably all experienced stage fright at some point. Yes, I want to try again. This time, when Marcus sat at the piano, he didn't look at the orchestra. He looked at Zoe, standing in the wings, giving a thumbs up. He placed his left hand over the keys, took a breath, and thought not for fame, not for redemption, for her, for Zoe, to show her that being brave means trying even when scared. Morrison raised his baton, and Marcus played. The first notes were rough, uncertain, but they came. Sound filled the hall. The orchestra joined, supporting, lifting, enhancing. Marcus kept playing, and as he played, fear began dissolving. Muscle memory took over. Heart took over. Music took over. Not perfect. He made mistakes. Timing was off in places, but he played all the way through the opening section. When he finished, the orchestra and Morrison burst into applause. Yes, Morrison shouted. That's it. That's what I wanted to hear. Marcus looked at Zoe. She was crying, smiling, clapping. First step taken. Many more to come. But he had started. And that was enough. 2 weeks before the performances, Marcus and Zoe entered the most intensive period of their lives. Every night, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. at the concert hall. First hour, Zoe's lesson. She was nearly ready. The Chopin Nocturne was polished. Beautiful, emotional. Madison and her bullies wouldn't know what hit them. Second and third hours, Marcus's rehearsal. Morrison scheduled 3 more rehearsals with the full orchestra. Marcus improved each time. Stage fright lessening, confidence building, left hand becoming superhuman. By the second week, Marcus could play the entire concerto without major errors. Not perfect, but powerful, honest, real. But then a complication arrived. The concert hall marketing department announced the spring gala lineup. Programs printed, press releases sent, and in those releases, featuring pianist Marcus Williams performing Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand, a local classical music journalist, Jennifer Chen from New York Classical Review, saw the name. Something familiar about it. She Googled Marcus Williams pianist, and articles from 1995-1998 appeared. Photos of the child prodigy, stories about Carnegie Hall, about the tragedy, about the disappearance. Jennifer wrote a story, Former Child Prodigy Marcus Williams resurfaces after 15 years. Will perform at Steinway Concert Hall Spring Gala. The story posted Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, it was trending in classical music circles. Social media exploded Marcus. Williams returns trending on Twitter in the classical music community. Major classical music outlets picked up the story. WQXR, NPR Classical, Gramophone Magazine, BBC Music Magazine. Whatever happened to Marcus Williams' child prodigy who disappeared returns to stage. Pianist who lost everything makes comeback. Marcus woke up Monday afternoon after working all night to 47 missed calls, 200 plus messages, and Zoe showing him the article on her phone. Dad, you're famous again. Marcus read the article, felt anxiety rising. This was what he feared. Exposure, attention, expectations. His phone rang. Morrison, Marcus, have you seen the articles? Yes. This is a good thing. Interest is high. The spring gala sold out. We had a waiting list. But now people are offering double, triple price for tickets. Everyone wants to see your comeback. James, I'm not ready for this level of you are ready. Trust me. You're playing beautifully. This attention, let it motivate, not scare you. After the call, Marcus sat at the kitchen table. Head in his hands, Zoe sat beside him. Dad, can I ask something? Yes? Why didn't you ever tell me about being a prodigy, about Carnegie Hall, about how famous you were? Marcus looked at his daughter. Moment of truth. Because I was ashamed, he said quietly. I was supposed to be great, child prodigy, future concert pianist. And then the accident happened. I lost everything, mom, career, identity. I became nobody, a janitor. And I didn't want you to know that your dad was a failure. But Dad, you're not a failure. I felt like one. Why? Because I gave up. Because I let fear win. Because for 15 years, I didn't play a single note. Zoe took her dad's hands. Dad, listen to me. You are not a failure. You are a survivor. You survived a tragedy that would have broken most people. You raised me alone after Mom died. You worked hard every single day to give me a good life. And now, you're playing again? You're performing. You're showing the world that you're still here? Marcus felt tears. When did you become so wise? I learned from the best teacher. They sat in silence, holding hands. Dad, yes, I have to tell you something. About the talent show. What is it? Kids at school saw the articles. They know you're my dad. They know you were famous. Madison and her friends, they're saying I only got good because of you. They're saying it's not fair that I have a professional pianist as a dad. Marcus felt anger rising. That's ridiculous. You worked hard. You earned, I know, but Zoe hesitated. It makes me more nervous. Everyone will be watching, judging, thinking I have an unfair advantage. Do you want to withdraw? No, Zoe said immediately. No, I want to do it even more now. I want to show them that no matter who Dad is, I worked for this. Every note, every practice session. This is my achievement. Marcus smiled. Proud. That's my girl. But Dad, we're both performing the same weekend. Friday night is the talent show. Saturday night is your gala concert. We're both nervous. We can support each other. Right, absolutely. That week was a blur. Marcus barely slept. Between work, rehearsals, teaching Zoe, media inquiries which he ignored, and growing anxiety. He was running on pure adrenaline. Thursday night, the night before the talent show. 2 nights before the gala. Marcus and Zoe had their final practice session at the concert hall. Zoe played through the entire Chopin Nocturne. Perfect, emotional, mature, beyond her years. When she finished, Marcus applauded, tears in his eyes. Zoe, that was perfect. You think I'm ready? More than ready? You're going to be amazing tomorrow? Then Marcus took his turn, played through the entire Ravel concerto. No orchestra this time, solo piano version. But he played as if the orchestra were there, hearing every instrument in his head. When he finished, they were both crying. We're really doing this, Zoe said. We really are. They held each other, 2 musicians, father and daughter, facing their fears together. Dad, yes. Whatever happens tomorrow and Saturday, I'm proud of us. Me too. Baby, me too. Friday evening, Jefferson High School auditorium, 7 p.m. A talent show banner hung over the stage. The auditorium was packed 500 people, students, parents, teachers, a buzz of excitement, anticipation, backstage. Zoe stood among other performers, yes, singers, dancers, guitar players, violinists, and Madison the rich girl. Long blonde hair, expensive dress, confidence radiating. Madison saw Zoe, walked over with a smirk. So, the janitor's daughter, or should I say, famous child prodigy's daughter? Must be nice having professional help. Zoe didn't respond, just focused on breathing, remembering what Dad taught: music speaks louder than words. You know everyone's watching you, right? Madison continued. They want to see if you're actually good or just riding your dad's coattails. Zoe turned, looked Madison in the eyes. I guess they'll find out. In the audience, Marcus sat in the 3rd row, nervous like he'd never been. This wasn't about him. This was about Zoe, his daughter. Facing her bullies, proving herself. The talent show began. First performer, a singer. Pop song, decent. Second, a dancer, hip-hop routine, impressive. Third, a guitar player, acoustic ballad. Nice. 10th performer, Madison. She walked on stage like she owned it. Expensive dress. Professional hair. Sat at the piano, the school's best. A grand piano brought in special for the show. Madison played Debussy's Clair de Lune. Technically proficient. Clean. Precise. perfectly executed like someone who'd had expensive lessons their whole life. The audience applauded. Madison bowed, smiling, confident she'd win. 3 performers later, Zoe Williams, performing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Opus 9, No. 2. Marcus held his breath as Zoe walked on stage. She wore a simple black dress they'd found at a thrift store. No expensive jewelry, no professional styling, just natural beauty, humble grace. Whispers in the audience. That's her, the janitor's daughter, the child prodigy's kid. Let's see if she's any good. Zoe sat at the piano, hands shaking, heart pounding. She looked into the audience, found her dad's eyes. He nodded, smiled, mouthed, "You got this." Zoe took a deep breath, placed her hands on the keys, and played. The opening notes of the Chopin Nocturne gentle, flowing, like water, left hand maintaining a steady rhythm, right hand singing a melody that spoke of longing, beauty, melancholy. Within the first few measures, the audience fell silent. This wasn't just technical playing. This was something more. This was feeling. Zoe poured everything into the music. All the frustration of being bullied, all the pain of losing her mother, all the love for the dad who sacrificed everything, all the joy of discovering piano, all the hope for the future. Music flowed from her fingers like it was always meant to be there, not showing off, not trying to impress, just honest, pure, beautiful, middle section faster, more passionate. Zoe's left hand maintained a steady pulse while her right hand danced across the keys, creating textures, colors, emotions. Marcus sat in the audience, tears streaming down his face. That was his daughter, his baby girl, playing like he used to play, with heart, with soul, with truth. Final section returned to the opening melody, but softer, more introspective, like gentle rain, like a whispered prayer. The last notes faded into silence. The audience sat stunned. Nobody moved. Then explosion. Standing ovation. Not just polite applause, real, genuine, moved to tears ovation, people on their feet, clapping, cheering. Zoe stood, bowed, overwhelmed. Couldn't believe it. Had she really done it? Marcus stood, clapping harder than anyone, not caring that tears ran down his face. The talent show continued. A few more performers, then the judges deliberated. Finally, the principal came on stage with the results. 3rd place, Amy Chen. Vocal performance. 2nd place, Madison Clark. Piano, Debussy, Claire de Lune. 1st place, Zoe Williams. Piano, Chopin Nocturne. The auditorium erupted. Zoe walked on stage, accepted the trophy, couldn't stop crying. Madison stood to the side, face red, furious. How had the janitor's daughter beaten her after the show? Backstage, Madison approached Zoe one final time. "You only won because of your dad. Everyone knows it. You had an unfair advantage." Zoe looked at her calmly. "You're right. I did have an advantage, Reese. I had a dad who worked 2 jobs to give me everything. A dad who stayed up all night teaching me because he believed in me. A dad who showed me that music isn't about money or perfection. It's about heart. If that's an unfair advantage, then yes, I had it. And I earned every single note." Madison had no response. Walked away, defeated. Marcus found Zoe, hugged her tight. "I'm so proud of you. Did I really do it, Dad?" "You did more than do it. You were magnificent. Now it's your turn." Marcus smiled, nervousness returning. "Tomorrow. You'll be amazing. I know it." They went home that night. Trophy on the kitchen table. Both nervous and excited for the biggest performance yet. Marcus's Spring Gala Concert. Saturday evening, March 15th, 2025, Steinway Concert Hall. Marcus stood backstage. Formal concert attire, black tuxedo borrowed from Morrison. White shirt, bow tie, hair freshly cut, shoes polished, looking every bit the concert pianist. But inside, a hurricane of emotions. Outside, the auditorium filled. 2,000 seats, everyone sold out. A waiting list of 500 more. The biggest attendance in the hall's history. In the audience, former colleagues from Marcus's childhood. Music critics from major publications. Classical music enthusiasts who remembered the child prodigy. Students from Juilliard. Random people who read the story and wanted to witness the comeback. And Zoe front row, center seat, one trophy from the previous night beside her. Morrison found Marcus backstage. "How you feelin', terrified?" "Good. Means you care." Morrison placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You know what, I've conducted thousands of concerts, worked with hundreds of soloists. And I can tell you tonight isn't about technique or perfection. Tonight is about your story, about not giving up, about finding a way back. That's what people came to hear. But what if, no what ifs? You're ready. The orchestra knows you're ready. I know you're ready. The only person who doesn't know is you. So let me tell you, you are ready." At 8 p.m., the lights dimmed. The audience settled. The program's first half symphony pieces. The orchestra performed beautifully. Morrison conducted with passion and precision. Intermission. Marcus paced backstage, hands shaken, breathing exercises not working, panic threatening. Zoe appeared backstage. "Dad, security let me back here. I wanted to see you." "Hey, baby, you look scared." "I am. Remember what you told me yesterday, let fear become excitement." Marcus smiled weakly. "Easier said than done. Dad, there are 2,000 people out there. They all came to hear you. Not because they expect perfection, but because they want to hear your story, want to hear what you overcame, want to be inspired. Don't let them down." Marcus hugged his daughter. "Thank you. Go show them what the Williams family is made of." The second half began. The orchestra returned. The audience settled. Morrison walked to the microphone center stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight, I have the extraordinary honor of introducing a pianist who many of you will remember 30 years ago. Marcus Williams was a child prodigy who captivated the world. At age 7, he debuted at Carnegie Hall. At 8, he performed with major orchestras across the country. Critics called him the next Mozart. A once-in-a-generation talent, the audience murmured. Remembering? Then, tragedy struck. At age 10, Marcus was in a terrible car accident. His mother died, his hand was severely injured, and Marcus disappeared from the music world. For 15 years. No one knew where he was. What happened to him? Morrison paused, letting the words sink in. Tonight, Marcus Williams returns, not as a child prodigy, but as a man who fought back, who adapted, who found a new way to create beauty despite limitations. He will perform one of the most challenging pieces in the piano repertoire, Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand, written for pianists who lost use of their right hand in war. Marcus plays this because his right hand, though not lost, was damaged beyond full use. He has spent weeks mastering left-hand technique, and tonight we witness his triumph. The audience erupted into applause before Marcus even appeared. Morrison continued, "I ask you, don't applaud technique. Don't judge perfection. Listen to the heart, listen to the courage, listen to the story being told. Ladies and gentlemen, please, welcome back Marcus Williams. Marcus walked from the wings onto the stage. The spotlight hit him, 2,000 faces looking at him. And for a moment, he froze. Memories crashed over him, the last time on stage, as a child, before the accident, the last time an audience looked at him with expectations. But then he saw Zoe, front row, standing, clapping, tears running down her face, mouthing, "I love you, Dad." And something clicked. This wasn't about the past. This was about now, about being a father, about showing his daughter that broken things can be beautiful. Marcus walked to the piano, sat, adjusted the bench, hands over the keys. Before beginning, he did something unprecedented. He spoke into the microphone attached to the piano. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice shaking but clear. 30 years ago, I lost everything I loved, my mother, my career, my identity for 15 years. I believed I was broken beyond repair, that I was a failure, that I had nothing left to offer. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Then my daughter, Zoe, in the front row, asked me to teach her piano. And in teaching her, I remembered why I fell in love with music in the first place. Not for fame or applause, but for joy, for connection, for the ability to express what words cannot. Marcus's voice was stronger now. Tonight, I'm not here to reclaim the past. I'm here to celebrate what was found in my daughter, my purpose, my joy in music. This performance is for everyone who thinks they're broken. You're not. You're just becoming something new. The audience erupted into applause, many already crying. Marcus turned to the piano. Morrison raised his baton. Orchestra ready. Marcus placed his left hand over the keys, right hand resting on his lap, not hidden, accepting the limitation openly, and began. Opening measures low, dark, powerful, left hand creating depth, drama, foundation. The orchestra joined contrabassoon, low strings, creating atmosphere. Marcus's left hand began the famous passages, rapid scales, arpeggios, patterns that seemed impossible for one hand, but he executed them with precision, power, passion. The audience was transfixed, watching the left hand fly across the keyboard, watching the right hand occasionally adding single notes in the treble, watching his face showing every emotion. The music told a story: opening section, darkness, struggle, pain, the accident, development, fighting, adapting, refusing to surrender, jazz influence section, finding joy again, discovering new possibilities, cadenza alone, vulnerable but strong, left hand proving it could do what seemed impossible, climax, triumph, acceptance, beauty from brokenness. The orchestra supported, enhanced, lifted. Morrison conducted with tears streaming down his face. This was why he became a musician. For moments like this, Marcus played like a man possessed, every fear, every doubt, every year of hiding all channeled into the music. Left hand superhuman, right hand doing what it could. Together creating something that transcended limitation. Middle section quieter, more introspective, almost like a lullaby. Marcus thinking of Zoe, of his wife gone too soon, of his mother who never got to see him now. Then building again, faster, stronger. Left hand thundering across the keyboard, orchestra matching the intensity. Final section powerful, declarative. This is who I am. Broken but whole, limited but unlimited, defeated but victorious, the last measures approaching. Marcus gave everything he had left: energy, emotion, soul. Final chords, orchestra, and piano together, massive, overwhelming, cathartic. The last note held, ringing, fading, fading, silence, complete, total silence. Marcus sat at the piano, exhausted, crying, left hand still resting on the keys. Then, explosion, standing ovation. Not just standing people shouting, crying, cheering. The longest ovation in Steinway Concert Hall history. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. People refused to stop. Marcus stood, bowed, overwhelmed. Looked at Zoe. She was screaming, crying, so proud. Morrison came to the stage, hugged Marcus publicly. "Welcome back, brother." The orchestra stood, applauding their soloist, a rare honor. Marcus bowed again. Again. Flowers thrown on stage, people chanting Marcus, 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 finally. Morrison raised his hands for quiet. It took many minutes for the audience to settle. Marcus Williams, everyone. Morrison said into the microphone, "If you want an encore," the crowd roared approval. Marcus thought for a moment, then spoke into the microphone, "I'd like to invite someone to join me. Zoe, baby, come up here." Zoe's eyes went wide. Marcus gestured to her. "Come on." Zoe climbed on stage, nervous, confused. Marcus hugged her, then spoke to the audience. "This is my daughter, Zoe. Yesterday, she won her school talent show. She's been learning piano for only 6 weeks. I'd like to play something with her." Zoe: "You ready, Dad?" "What are we playing?" "Trust me." They sat at the piano together, Marcus on the left side, Zoe on the right. Marcus whispered, "Remember Heart and Soul, easy version." Zoe nodded. Marcus began simple bass line in the left hand. Then Zoe joined simple melody in the right hand. A children's duet, nothing fancy, nothing complex. But the audience loved it. Father and daughter, playing together, pure joy when they finished. The audience roared again. Marcus and Zoe stood, bowed together, holding hands. Backstage later. Media swarmed, interview requests, cameras, reporters. "Marcus, what's next for you? Will you tour? Is this the beginning of a comeback?" Marcus raised his hands, one thing at a time. "Tonight was about proving something to myself, about being brave, about showing my daughter that setbacks don't define us. Whatever comes next, we'll see." A reporter: "What do you want people to take away from tonight?" Marcus thought. That you're never too broken to create beauty. That limitations can become strengths. That it's never too late to try again. 3 months later, June 2025. Life had changed dramatically for Marcus Williams after the spring gala performance. Offers poured in, recording contract from Deutsche Grammophon, record a left-hand repertoire album. Concert invitations from major halls: Kennedy Center, Royal Albert Hall, Suntory Hall, Tokyo. Teaching position offered by 3 conservatories. Documentary film rights. Book deal for a memoir. Marcus turned down most. Accepted a few carefully. Part-time teaching position at Juilliard pre-college program. Saturdays only. He'd teach students who faced challenges, disabilities, financial hardship, late starters, students, others overlooked. Second chance studio. They called it 2 concerts per month. Small venues, intimate settings. Nothing like a previous touring schedule. Just enough to share music, connect with audiences, recording contract. But with conditions: half of the proceeds go to music education programs for underprivileged children. documentary, but only if it focused on Zoe too, on teaching, on finding joy after trauma, what he didn't accept: fame, celebrity, the publicity circus. Marcus Williams, at 45, had learned what mattered, and it wasn't applause. It was breakfast with his daughter. It was teaching a student who thought they'd never learn. It was quiet moments at the piano, late at night, playing just for the joy of it. He still worked as a janitor 2 nights a week. Morrison tried to convince him to quit. "Marcus, you don't need this job anymore. Maybe not for the money, but I like it. Reminds me where I came from. Keeps me humble. Besides, Reggie and Carlos are good friends." Morrison laughed. "You're a stubborn man. I prefer grounded." Zoe thrived. After the talent show victory, her confidence blossomed. The bullying stopped hard to bully someone who proved themselves so completely. She continued piano lessons with Marcus, advanced rapidly. By summer, she was accepted to the Juilliard pre-college program, studying with her father Saturdays and other teachers during the week. She also started a mentoring program teaching younger kids piano at the community center. Free lessons for anyone who wanted, like Dad taught me, she explained. In late June, Morrison organized a small recital, Marcus and Zoe performing duets. Just 100 seats. Intimate, beautiful. They played Schubert four-hand duet, Brahms Hungarian Dance No. 5, an arrangement Marcus made of What a Wonderful World, left hand and right hand sharing the melody equally. Adapted so Marcus could play his parts with limitations. The audience included Carlos and Reggie from the concert hall, Zoe's classmates including Madison, who had apologized and become a friend, Marcus's former teachers, music critics, Juilliard students, and one special guest, Professor Steinberg's son, carrying a letter his father wrote before dying 2 years ago. After the performance, he approached Marcus. "My father followed your career and disappearance until he passed. He wrote this, asked me to give it to you if you ever return to music. I saw the articles about the concert. I think now is the time." Marcus opened the envelope with shaking hands, read, "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, it means you've found your way back to music. I'm crying tears of joy from wherever I am. When you disappeared, I blamed myself. I pushed too hard, expected too much. Forgot you were a child. I'm sorry for that. But I want you to know you were the greatest talent I ever taught, not because of technique or speed or memory, but because of heart. The way you felt music, breathed music, loved music. If you've come back to the piano, I hope you found what I failed to teach you. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being human. It's about sharing joy, pain, hope, love through sound. I hope you forgive me for being a harsh teacher. I hope you forgive yourself for being human. And I hope you play for one reason only, because it makes you happy. With love and pride. Professor David Steinberg, S." The piano doesn't care if you have an injured hand or perfect technique. The piano only cares about the soul behind the fingers. And Marcus, you have the most beautiful soul I ever encountered. Marcus finished reading. Couldn't see through the tears. Zoe hugged him. So did Morrison. So did many others. Later that night, Marcus and Zoe walked through Central Park. Summer evening, warm, beautiful. They sat by the fountain, watching people pass. Dad, yes. Do you ever wish the accident didn't happen, that you could have had your original career? Marcus thought for a long time. Sometimes. But then I remember if the accident didn't happen, the path would be different. Maybe I wouldn't have you. Maybe I wouldn't have learned what I learned. Maybe I'd be famous, rich, touring the world, but also miserable, empty, never finding real joy. So you're glad. Not glad about the accident, not glad about losing Mom, but glad about who I became after. Glad about you. Glad about finding my way back to music on my terms. Glad about learning that being broken isn't the end. It's just the beginning of something new. Zoe leaned her head on her dad's shoulder. I'm glad too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fountain, listening to the city sounds, being present. Dad, yes. What should we learn next? For piano, Marcus smiled. What do you want to learn? Something happy. Something with both of us playing together. Something that makes people smile. I know the perfect piece. Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue. Arranged for 4 hands. It's joyful, American. Has jazz influences. And there's a section where our hands cross yours over mine, symbolizing how we support each other. Perfect. When do we start tomorrow? After breakfast, after we finish chores, after we live life. Then we play. Sounds perfect. Dad. Holiday season, Steinway Concert Hall hosting the annual Christmas concert benefit. Proceeds go to music education programs, featured performers, various artists, and special guests. Marcus Williams, accompanied by his daughter, Zoe Williams, performing Tchaikovsky's arrangement of the Nutcracker Suite for 4 hands. Sold out. Again. But this time, Marcus wasn't nervous. This time, it felt natural, right. They performed beautifully. The audience loved it. Standing ovation, warmth, holiday spirit. Afterward, at the reception, Marcus mingled, but mostly stayed close to Zoe. She was talking with a young girl, maybe 10, who shyly approached. Ms. Williams, just Zoe. Zoe corrected kindly. Zoe, I want to learn piano, but my family can't afford lessons. Do you know? Zoe smiled, looked at her dad. Marcus nodded. What's your name? Zoe asked. Emma. My dad teaches at Juilliard Saturdays, a program called Second Chance Studio, for students who need a second chance. The cost is whatever you can afford. Could be nothing. Could be something. You interested? Emma's face lit up. Really? Oh my gosh. Really, Marcus said, joining the conversation. Bring your parent next Saturday. We'll talk. We'll find a way. Emma hugged them both, ran to tell her parents. Zoe looked at her dad. It was smooth. Learning from the best. Marcus said. They stood together, watching the party, watching people celebrating music, celebrating hope. Morrison approached. Marcus, I have news. What the New York Times called, want to do a feature story? Where Are They Now piece? About child prodigies who disappeared and what happened. You're the headliner. They want an interview, photos, the whole thing. Marcus considered. Once, he would have panicked. Now tell them yes. But with conditions, which are the story isn't just about me. It's about Zoe too. About all the students in Second Chance Studio. About anyone who thought their dream was over but found a new dream. The story isn't Marcus Williams returns. The story is people don't give up. Morrison smiled. You've changed. For the better, for the better. The article came out January 2026. Unfinished Symphony Child Prodigies Who Found Their Way Back. It featured Marcus prominently, but also Zoe's story, 5 other students from Second Chance Studio, discussion about pressure on child performers, How to support talented children without destroying them. The beauty of imperfection. The article went viral. Millions of reads, sparked conversations about education, expectations, mental health, disability accommodations. Marcus and Zoe's photo at the piano together, both smiling. Hands sharing the keyboard became an iconic image. Posters in music schools, inspiration for many. Marcus Williams, now 47. Zoe Williams, 16. They're performing again, but not in a concert hall, in a community center in the Bronx. The neighborhood where Marcus grew up. Free concert, open to everyone, folding chairs, coffee and cookies served by volunteers. The audience neighbors, local families, children, elderly people. Homeless people who wandered in from the cold. Marcus and Zoe play classical pieces, jazz arrangements, pop songs, requests from the audience, heart and soul with an 8-year-old from the front row who joined them on stage at the end. Marcus speaks. Thank you all for coming. Music shouldn't be locked away in fancy halls for people who can afford $200 tickets. Music belongs to everyone. It's a human right. It's joy. It's healing. It's hope. My daughter and I will be here the first Saturday of every month, playing for free, teaching for free anyone who wants to learn. Bring your kids, bring your grandparents, bring your friends, bring yourselves. Come make music with us. Because 30 years ago, I was a child from Harlem who thought he'd never belong in the music world. Then I lost everything and thought I'd never play again. But here I am. Here we are. And if we can find our way back, anyone can. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving a broken man and his daughter a chance to share joy. God bless. The audience applauded, not a standing ovation, just warm, genuine, grateful applause. Afterward, people lined up. Some wanted autographs, some wanted photos, some wanted to talk, some wanted to learn. Marcus and Zoe stayed for hours, talking to everyone, listening to stories, offering encouragement. One elderly woman approached Marcus. I remember you. 1997. Carnegie Hall. You played Rachmaninoff. I was in the balcony, cheapest seat, but I'll never forget it. You changed my life that night. Thank you for coming back. Marcus hugged her. Thank you for remembering. Walking home that night, cold December air, Marcus and Zoe walked hand in hand. Dad, yes, we did it, didn't we? We found our way. We did. Baby, we did. What's next? Marcus thought. Whatever we want. The world is open, but honestly, I'm happy with this. Teaching, playing for people who need it, being with you. That's everything. Me too. Dad, me too. They reached their apartment building, walked up the familiar stairs, into the small apartment that felt like home. Marcus made hot chocolate. They sat together on the old couch, warming their hands on the mugs. On TV, the news was on. A reporter mentioning the upcoming Grammys. Marcus was nominated for Best Classical Instrumental Solo for his left-hand repertoire album. He'd probably lose. It didn't matter. On the mantel, 2 photos. First, young Marcus at Carnegie Hall, age 8, full of promise. Second, Marcus and Zoe at the piano, ages 45 and 14, full of joy. Between them, Zoe's talent show trophy and Marcus's comeback concert program. Framed. Not a trophy case full of awards, just 2 pieces of paper, 2 photos, and love. Dad, yes, I love you too. Baby. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking hot chocolate, listening to the city sounds outside. being grateful for the journey that brought them here. Because Marcus Williams learned something important. You don't need perfect hands to create beautiful music. You don't need fame to find fulfillment. You don't need to be a child prodigy to matter. You just need courage to try again, love to motivate you, and willingness to let broken pieces become something new. Marcus Williams was a janitor. Marcus Williams was a child prodigy. Marcus Williams was a concert pianist. But most importantly, Marcus Williams was a father. Marcus Williams was a teacher. Marcus Williams was a survivor. And that was enough. More than enough. Marcus and Zoe at the piano one last time, playing What a Wonderful World. Simple arrangement. Both hands sharing the melody. Both hearts sharing joy. Camera pulls back. Door to the apartment open. Neighbors peering in, listening. The building super leaning against the wall, smiling. Music floating out the window into the Bronx night. People on the street slowing down, listening. Music reaching everyone. Because that's what music does. It heals, it connects, it reminds us we're human. And Marcus Williams, once lost, now found, was proof that it's never too late to begin again. Marcus Williams continues to perform and teach. His Second Chance studio at Juilliard has graduated 47 students. Zoe Williams is studying piano performance at Juilliard's college program. They still practice together every week, and they still perform free concerts in the Bronx Monthly. Music belongs to everyone,